So our next recipe is the spicy spaghetti sauce. At our center here at Living Foods Institute, this is hands down student favorite. So you're really gonna love this recipe. It's very meaty, it's very, very hearty, and we're not using any animal products at all. Actually, what creates the meatiness is the cashews, and that'll be the last ingredient that we're going to add. So first, we're going to start on the tomato base, the tomato part of this sauce. And our first ingredient is going to be 3 cloves of garlic. So of course, your garlic bulb looks like this. This is how you're gonna find it in your grocery store in the produce section. And in this bulb, there's many cloves. So you're going to take 3 cloves from this garlic, and we've prepped them in advance here. We've taken the cloves and we've minced them up, which means we've finely chopped them. Your food processor will do that for you. If you're using a food processor for this recipe, you can use a blender to make this recipe if that's all you have. So definitely use what you have. But a food processor is optimal. It'll keep it, the meatiness and the texture exactly what we want. But we're starting off with garlic. You can let your food processor do this for you, so it's not necessary to mince it up quite all the way down like we have, but you can. So we've got 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to add 4 fresh tomatoes next, and the tomatoes that we're using today are these Roma tomatoes, which are really delicious. But any tomato that you have, tomatoes from your garden, any tomato that you find in your store is perfectly fine for this recipe. So we'll be using Roma tomatoes, and we have 4 fresh tomatoes already chopped up, just roughly chopped, because our processor will be chopping that more for us. I'm going to add those tomatoes to the food processor. Now your tomatoes are bright in color. They help us fight cancer and keep us really, really, really healthy. So those bright colored fruits and vegetables are optimal for your diet. You want to add lots of those into all of your foods. The next ingredient for our spicy spaghetti sauce is a cup of sun-dried tomatoes. So we have in this jar here, we have sun-dried tomatoes and also dates. So we have 3 pitted dates and we have sun-dried tomatoes just soaking. And the reason that they're soaking in water, as you can see here in this jar, we've soaked them for about 4 hours. You can soak them overnight, that's fine, so up to 8 hours. That is to help soften them up. Now your sun-dried tomatoes are going to give a concentrated tomato flavor to any recipe that you're doing raw and you're not cooking. When you're cooking your tomatoes, that helps with that process, but since we're not cooking them, your sun-dried tomatoes are excellent to add that concentrated tomato flavor. And you can find the sun-dried tomatoes usually where the herbs and spices are in your grocery store. You can also find them sometimes in the produce area as well. But I'd recommend if they're not in the produce area and they're not where the herbs and spices are, go ahead and ask somebody at your grocery store and they'll point out where the sun-dried tomatoes are. You don't want to find sun-dried tomatoes that are being marinated in any kind of oil or anything like that. You're going to want to find them dry. So they should just be dry, unsulfured, sun-dried tomatoes. You can find them in any grocery store. And also in this jar are 2 pitted, actually there's 3 pitted dates for this recipe. And I'm just going to show you before I drain that what a date looks like. This is a date. It's a medjool date, but any kind of date is fine. And these ones are soaking. This one is dry. And before we soak it, we want to pull that date pit out. We definitely don't want to bite on that or put that into the process. That's very, very hard. So that's how you take the pit out of the date. Dates are an excellent source of natural sugar. So if you're working out a lot, that's actually a nice little sweet snack that you're going to very much enjoy. But we have those 3 pitted dates in this jar. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this water. So I'm going to just take a bowl right now. You could always put that in the refrigerator and use that for another recipe. In our case, we've used a screen, just like a screen door screen. We've cut that to size, and we've put the lid on top to hold that in place. You could always put a rubber band around that if you want to, or any kind of strainer or colander is totally fine. Whatever you have to drain the water off is what you're going to want to use. So I'll just take this off, and I'm going to go ahead and add the sun-dried tomatoes and the dates straight into my food processor. Excellent. All right. So our next ingredient in our spicy tomato sauce is going to be 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And we've gone ahead and juiced that ahead of time. So we have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Lemon juice is incredibly alkalizing to the body, and it adds a nice flavor to this sauce. So we have our lemon juice there. And now we're going to go ahead and add our herbs and spices. So we have a tablespoon of dried basil, a tablespoon of dried oregano, and just a pinch of cayenne pepper. So we're going to add these dried herbs and spices into our food processor here. That's going to add a nice concentrated herb flavor to our food. It's going to be absolutely delicious. And herbs are great. In general, most herbs just help soothe our stomach and help with our digestion. So it's nice to add herbs into all of our foods. They often provide antioxidant protection as well. So we have all of those ingredients in our food processor, and now I'm going to go ahead and process. You're going to want to shut this off periodically and just to scrape down the sides of the processor to make sure everything gets nice and processed together. Oh, that's already smelling so good. Wow. Fantastic. Now we have one more ingredient to add to this recipe to make it meaty and heavy and hearty, which is what we're looking for today. So we have our sauce. And our last ingredient here, we're using cashews. Okay, so we've soaked our cashews overnight. That's roughly 8 hours. And again, that's to soften those up so we can add them to our processor and they're going to break up and they're going to be soft. And it's really going to create a meaty texture that you're going to love. So these have been soaking in water. We want to go ahead and get rid of the water. All right, so we've just drained our cashews here. You might need to rinse those off a little bit, which is no problem. If it seems like the water's a little thick, don't worry about that. That happens. Just make sure you rinse those off. So we have our cashews, which is a cup of cashews. We're going to go ahead and add those rinsed off, soaked cashews to our food processor, the tomato sauce. Excellent. And we're going to process that until it's nice and meaty. And just want to scrape down the sides a couple of times just to help with the processing. That looks absolutely delicious. That's perfect. Wonderful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the sauce to the bowl. And we're just going to scrape this sauce in here and pull this out. Move the blade and put that aside for now. We have a spicy spaghetti sauce that you are just going to love. There we go. Okay. Wonderful. There we go. There we go. Spicy spaghetti sauce. Enjoy.